Hi there, welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us for this session today where we'll be talking about the concept of the project economy and introducing you to an exciting new publication in the field of project management. The new publication was published last week and it's available to purchase now, and it's the Harvard Business Review Project Management Handbook, How to Launch, Lead and Sponsor Successful Projects. My name's Mark Constable. I'm with the team here at APMG, and I've got two great guests with me today in Richard Farrow, CEO of APMG, and Antonio Nieto-Rodriguez, who's the author of the new handbook that we're talking about today. I'll hand over to Richard shortly for a brief introduction, and Richard will then in turn hand over to Antonio, who will take us through the project economy concept and take us through the detail of the new publication. Before I do that, I'll just cover a few bits or a few logistical pieces for the session. So the first is to note that we are recording the session and we'll make the recording available soon afterwards via our YouTube channel. Secondly, we want this to be an interactive session, so we'd love to get questions from the audience. Antonio would love your questions on the new handbook. So there's a couple of options for questions. So firstly, if you'd rather not talk on the live session, then you'll see on your GoToWebinar control panel that you can type your questions in, and I'll be keeping a close eye on those throughout, and we'll try to address as many as we can. But the second option, if you prefer, you can use the hand raise function, which you'll see on the GoToWebinar control panel. And again, I'll be keeping a close eye on those to see who's got their hand raised, and we can open your line so that you can talk directly with Antonio. So that's the logistics, I think, in place. So without further ado, I'll hand things over firstly to Richard. So welcome, Richard, over to you.
Thank you very much, Mark, and thank you everybody for joining this event. I'm delighted to have invited Antonio to this session, as I was one of the few people who was privileged enough to review his book. And I particularly welcomed his focus on sponsors, as I feel there isn't enough clear guidance on the importance of their role from a business viewpoint. Hopefully, the combination of Antonio's insights and the might of the Harvard Business Review readership can actually change that, all for the good. Some of you may also know that Antonio set up the Strategy Implementation Institute with Robin Speckland, and they've been promoting the idea that projects are so important as the link between developing a strategy or your strategic intent and then successful execution of your strategy. And like many projects, a lot of strategies also fail to deliver the outcomes that people want. I personally believe that better informed and more engaged sponsors are the key to more successful project delivery. We all know why we need to improve project delivery, and I think Antonio's book explains how sponsors can play their key role in actually bringing that about. That's all I wanted to say. It gives me great pleasure to hand over to Antonio for him to say some words about what led up to writing the book, the response he's already had on the book, and most importantly today, to answer all of our questions. So this really should be an interactive session where we can challenge Antonio's views on why he says what he says. So welcome, Antonio, and over to you.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Mark, Estelle, APMG, for organizing this celebration, virtual celebration. You've done amazing to support me in the launch of the book and previously on the strategy implementation professional, and so really appreciate it. And Richard, I really find every time we talk very enlightening conversations. You are also a great expert in this field, and that's been proven with APMG International, the impact that you had on millions of people. And so thank you for that. I want to thank, of course, HBR. They've been amazing from day one. Bought the idea that we had to work on a new handbook for project management, and the team on the editorial part, incredible, to help me to shape up my ideas, to make a book that is easy to read by not just project managers, but like you were saying, Richard, sponsors and non-project management professionals. Everybody, I was talking yesterday in a podcast, and there has been so much focus on Agile, over the last 10 years, but who uses Agile? I think we know some people, but we know that everybody does project, and why don't we need to talk more about that? So I think we've created a great book for anybody who's doing projects, and then the marketing with Sally, and it's just been a great experience. Now I just finished recording a podcast, IdeaCast with HBR, which comes in a couple of weeks. So thank you, Richard. Thank you to your team, to HBR, and also big thanks to all the participants. I know most of the names in the list, so good to see you all. I know. I know many of you for many years, and I feel like maybe I'm here on the screen, but I feel like I'm speaking for all of you. I'm somehow the lucky person who has a bit more voice in this space, but I truly believe I'm representing people, project managers, program managers, agile people who do want to do a better world. And so I just welcome the idea of having more an interactive session than me just talking about the concepts which you all hear. You already heard me, and we have active debates in LinkedIn every week on topics like this week on why projects continue to have such a low rate of success. So thank you very much, and I'm happy to share a couple of slides. I'm prepared like a good project manager. So just a couple of concepts, maybe new ideas that come to mind. And I want then, Richard, please jump in. So this slide you've seen several times. I think I've presented this maybe 50, 70 times to leaders, and they all agree from any kind of industry. I was talking in Uzbekistan for a retailer in cars, and they say, yes, we see operations being automated in our factories, and we all are running more projects than we can. So this shift of operations towards project-based work, and again, project means change, means agile, change management. I want to embrace, I want to move out from this polarization that we had in terms of methods. But maybe the new idea that I want to share, and I will ask Richard what you think, is that over the years, what has happened is that I remember starting my career working on ERP system implementations. I don't know if you recall these SAPs and Oracles, and to my surprise, these were projects that were planned for 2 years, were lasting 6 years, and budgets were exploding. And what I understood is that we were trying to apply a method to manage them, which was not adapted. I think that's when Prince2 came into space to have more control on those IT projects, but that didn't work out. And then the PMOs came into the picture, but we were trying to apply methods like Prince2 or project management to IT projects, and the failure rate continued being very high. Then we had in the 2000, so every 20 years, there's a big disruption. Agile came into place for e-commerce and internet projects, and that helped for a few years. But if we look back now in the next 20 years, we have now digital transformation projects, agile, artificial intelligence, big data, where we are trying to apply agile methods, and the failure rate even increases with 80, 90%. So my thinking is that we develop some tools which get very quickly out of date. And they're not fit for purpose. Yeah, we're using wrong tools for solving the problems that companies are dealing. And my view is with the HBR book is let's build a tool set. Let's not just focus on one tool, but build them all together. And I'm not sure this has been done before, but I think that's what companies need. When you have a big part of your operations and business done from projects, we need different tools, not just one or the other. And talking to Richard recently, you mentioned also the polarization between Six Sigma and project management. I think in the 70s or 80s, then it came agile versus project management. So Richard, what do you think? Does this make sense?
I think the biggest problem that we have is we can't manage ambiguity and complexity using the normal tools. So as you say, we have a project plan and a budget on day one. The project's going to last many months. But, we don't have a way of recognizing that a certain percentage of the project is going to be known and it's going to be straightforward using current technology. But a portion of it's going to be complex, going to be difficult, is ill-defined. Yet we apply the same tools to all the work. So somehow we need to have a way of building in that complexity. I don't know the answer to that, but I certainly think your proposition that the tools of 30 years ago, the Gantt chart, the critical path analysis, I'm not sure how you bring those to bear on complex projects with ambiguity, but I'm sure someone listening has the answer. So I'd like to ask anyone listening to help me out of a very difficult question thrown to me by my guest.
I know Thomas Valenta is on the call. I don't know, Thomas, if you can speak, but he's a very good friend, and he was part of the board of PMI, and we were discussing this through LinkedIn today. So Thomas, I really appreciate if you can talk your views, because I think that makes sense, that predictability, trying to predict what is unpredictable, it's one of the issues.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hello, Thomas.
Yeah, can hear you, Thomas.
Hi, Richard
Yes.
and Mark. Good to see you here. And thanks for having this this call and presentation about a new book, which I want to commend you for, Antonio. As you know, it's very good that we have such a good expert as you, and sharing your knowledge. And I know we discussed a lot of this in the past years, and now it's coming out. Yeah, actually, you put a LinkedIn post on that book just recently, and I replied with that idea, the thought and the perspective that, in projects, we always try to predict the future. We are planning, and we are saying, okay, it will cost so much, and then you will get this and that, and actually the future cannot be predicted 100%. So we should not be too surprised that we are failing sometimes, and maybe the relative thing is the sometimes. How many times are we allowed to fail? And if we have high stakes, maybe we should be allowed to fail quite a lot more than we have kind of operational projects, doing the same thing again and again and again. So what would be not acceptable in operations should be acceptable in projects.
Thank you. I think that it's great perspective, Thomas. Indeed, we're trying to predict the future. We make estimates, we make plans, and we know maybe this 40 years ago was possible, but today we don't know what's going to happen in 6 months, right? So I think it's a great point of view, and I don't know, I think it enforces that theory of building different tools, and that means also building different competencies within the organizations. Thank you, Thomas. Let's go back to the slide. You can see it?
Yes. Yeah.
There is, I want to address 2 other things. So we talk about the methodologies. One thing that so we're talking about 2 business models, right, together. You have a business model which we built very successful for that were driven by efficiency. The hierarchy that you see at the bottom on the left, where you see the type of processes that we were using. It's all about predictability, it's about command control, and suddenly we're moving into that world which is driven by change, where it's more agile, it's more team-based, less hierarchical, more about innovation, different type of skills. And the challenge for many organizations is you still need the blue part, right? You need that. You cannot just say, well, I just drop all my operations. No, you need less resources, you need less focus, but you need to keep that running. But most of the people move. But the big thing I want to share with you, and that's also just thinking recently, researching, and in the past, projects were not the ones that would bring the revenues of an organization. projects will last 3-5 years, and maybe, of course, if you do M&A or if you do type of projects or product launches, yes, but we were not expecting to bring revenues. The revenues were bringing by the left side, by the operations. And I think as the operations is shrinking and the future is accelerating, I was really pleased to see the editorial from Adi Ignatius from HBR, and he was saying projects are your future. And yes, the future was 3 years in the past 3 years, but now the future might be 3 months. So what I'm saying is that projects and project managers need to bring revenues much more than in the past. So we need to build skills around sales, value, benefits, much more than what we're used to. This is also something that I want to emphasize. I emphasize in the book is that very soon companies and leaders will be expecting maybe 50% of their total revenues coming from fast projects, from projects that in the past will take 5 years. Now they need to take 5 months, and they need to bring value and clear value revenues. So I don't know if that resonates, Richard. Is again, does it make sense that we've been more working on intangible value and now we need to bring really tangible value because of the speed and the new nature of the world?
I'm not really sure to try to really understand, because clearly I don't think you can accelerate a 5-year project into a 5-month project, but I think you can look at incremental delivery. You can look at, well, what can we do to move us slightly forward? I can't remember exact definition. I think Eddie Obeng used to talk about different types of projects, and there was a foggy project where you inched along because you weren't too sure where you were going. And maybe we just need to have much shorter time scales of when we're expecting something to deliver. But you see, I've never really understood the minimum viable product, because whenever I've delivered a minimum viable product, it's never been viable enough for the person I delivered it to. So we always had the debate about, how long does it take you to build something that is viable and is going to deliver something? But I do think the thing that we must do more of is front-end thinking about why are we doing the project and what is it we're expecting to get out of it. And for my whole career, I can't think of any good projects where there's been enough thinking at the outset rather than having to put it right at the end. So I think much more attention on design thinking, concept engineering, whatever you want to call it, before we get started. And coming back to the earlier point, what is ambiguous and difficult to leave to one side so we've got to resolve it while we can get on with the stuff that is easy? But again, that's what I think the focus should be. But I don't think we can wave a magic wand and go from 5 years to 5 months. But we can look for something that's going to give us value.
Thank you, Richard. And it's something that I cover in the book as well, the importance of innovation and knowing when to start the project. And not every idea should be a project, that you can use other approaches. So absolutely, it's a space that we have not explored very much in the project management profession or agile teams, and I think it's a big part of the skills that we need to build. And I explain how in the book. I want to open up for any feedback on this point as well. Anybody wants to share?
Sorry, I was trying to figure out how to share the webcam and accidentally shared it too soon. So I got a question. You mentioned about the change of approach every 20 years or so seems to sort of come through in terms of methodologies. And clearly we've had about 20 plus years of agile, and prior to that RAD and all that kind of stuff as well, sort of waiting in the wings. We're going through a massive change now in terms of the way people are working, with thanks to COVID, and more distributed, more working from home. We'd already had globalization of projects happening. What changes do you kind of perceive happening now or accelerating as a result of COVID in terms of the way projects are organized and managed and handled?
Thank you, Mark. Great question, great observation. And I think what you see is that when you work virtually, hierarchy disappears a bit, right? We're all in the same screen. It's not like Richard, because he's the CEO, will be on the top of the screen. And so I think that flattens up the whole structures of organization. Everybody has a voice, and project-based work is something that you can see more and more happening. The operational people tend to be focused on the operations. You don't see them so much in the Zoom calls. And I think most of the people that participate in the Zoom calls are people working in projects, agile approaches or fix whatever. But I think it's a bit like making reality what we've been talking about, which is project-based work, and getting everybody in the teams pushing some ideas, the new business model, how we become digital. It's all happening virtually, and I think we have seen that with the pandemic, how quickly organizations have become digital. I know the business schools work very well, and my university was talking 10 years about becoming virtual. It happened in 2 weeks because of that focus and that that project-based approach where everybody dropped whatever day job they were doing and focus on just one thing, which was that project that will keep the business alive. So I think it's beneficial. On the other side, Mark, we are people, it's a people business. Projects are people business. So we do need that social interactivity. We need social interactivity to build trust and to build bonds and to connect with people. And that is really hard to do virtually. So I think I'm struggling with that part. I, of course, talk about virtual projects in the book, but I think the social aspect is something that I feel people are missing. And I don't really know how we can address that virtually. I don't think there's a replacement than getting together in a doing a workshop and then going out for dinner. That's something that we need to still have.
Yeah, that human connection is key, isn't it? To all of what we're doing here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark, for the question. One thing that I see is very different, and that's also why the focus of the HBR book is in the past, and I think most of you in the call, we've been working with projects, but it was a very small group of people in the organizations. Except maybe Thomas, you've been working for IBM, and I guess there you had a lot of project managers, but the companies I work for, maybe 5% of the population were project managers. And it has also all the trainings on project management were for them, all the tools. But what is different now is that, yes, we'll still need the project managers, but you have 60%, 70% of the employees who had projects more as a part-time hobby or role, and now they're going to be jumping into this full-time. So I think project management is for everyone. Maybe a small minority will still run in the operations and they will just focus on that and will liberate it from any project type of activity. But we're talking about 80% of the employees in a company being trained on these new skills, including agile, innovation, design thinking, project management, including senior leaders. And that's where the book comes also into play. Is these senior leaders, they were quite good into the operations in the blue side here. They didn't have maybe the competencies to manage projects. Now they have to. They need to learn that. So I think the scope of projects and project management methods and skills has broadened up, is significant. Again, back to you, Richard, is this making sense, or you don't see it is still a specialized? I think that makes also the role of the project manager being maybe more as a mentor or as a leader, driving change and showing the other people how to work. So it will impact the role of the project manager if we evolve as well. If we stick as we are today, I think our role will not last forever, for very long. Richard?
I think one of the skills, particularly with the diverse workforce, the home working, is collaboration management.
Mm-hmm.
How do you collaborate? How do you truly collaborate when you're working remotely? So what tools can you use? How can you replace that loss of that human engagement. And I agree with you. I think lots of people are working on projects, but you're then back into, I think, a challenge that the profession's been facing for decades. How do you define a project? You know, so are 3 people working together to do something in a week with a plan and a budget? Is that a project? Is that the same project as rolling out 5G or building HS2? Is it the same skill set? So I think everybody's working collaboratively with an objective, an output and an outcome, but whether they are actually or should be defined as projects by professional project managers, I'm not so sure. I think there is a danger of calling everything a project that dilutes the profession of professional project managers. But I think more collaborative working across the organization, less silo, less hierarchy, is probably with us. It's happened. I mean, you know, my organization, we've worked from home for 18 months. People are now starting to go back into the office on occasions, and people are coming back. Teams are coming in, not to work, but to socialize. So a team will come in for the day to go out to lunch.
Nice.
Because it's how you maintain that human connectivity.
Nice. I love it. People come to the office for social. I like it. Nice. Let's open for any comments on this. Do you see this happening? Hi, Estelle.
Hello, Antonio. We've got a shy person in there. We haven't had anyone mentioning about their collaborating at the moment. I think we'll come back to it. We need to give them a bit of time. But someone who is a little bit shy says, "How do you think that the project management offices will evolve in the coming years?"
It's a great question. If we go to this back to this slide, and I think what you see is that PMOs, whatever you look at, it's a box in a hierarchy, right? I've been working in a PMO for 20 years, and we were a box in a hierarchy trying to report to the CEO. But if we're saying that the future of organizations is less of a hierarchy, that PMO box will need to change. And for me, it's still something that it's an evolving situation. I don't really see today that PMOs in a structure like on the left will last very long. I think PMOs need to move into the strategy implementation field. If we're saying there will be more work carried out through projects, the role of the PMO should be that department, that organization that follows the implementation or the most strategic projects of the organization. It has a much bigger remit, what Richard was saying, defining what the project means for each organization, prioritizing this project. So I think there is definitely a role to play as a PMO in that space, but that means that we need to change a lot of the current practices, which is more back office type of work, reporting, into more a frontline role driving the big transformations in organizations. So I would say PMOs, project management office, there is an urgency to change. And I think we need to define how that looks like. The first, of course, strategy implementation, is where I see many of these PMOs moving. Different skills, again, that we need to develop. Thank you. Great question. I just have two more.
Thank you.
Thank you. And anybody can jump in. I just want to cover two more concepts from the book, and then we can open up. So I think this is the other point, back to Richard. This is what we've learned in project management, right? This is the famous project lifecycle. And what we were saying before, and Richard comment about that, today in methodologies around projects, what happens in ideation, we don't have a clue. It's not covered, it's not relevant. We just get whatever the idea it is, maybe already the business case, and our role is on the white space. We don't know what happens at the end when it's delivered and who takes care. We try to find an owner, but we run away. And then the benefits, we talk about it. Most of the time, the benefits are towards the end of the project or after the project is completed. So it's not our responsibility, right? So that's, I think, project management has been for 20, 30 years like that. I think the new one, it's very different. It's radically different because it's just 20% left of what we used to do. So I completely agree with Richard. It's something that I cover in the book. We need to play in ideation. We need to understand how ideas are built, which idea is mature enough to be a project. So design thinking, innovation, ideation is a very, very important role. I hope that very soon technology will help and disrupt the way we do projects in terms of selection of projects, planning, scoping, risk management, reporting, that artificial intelligence. I've seen already some prototypes of machine learning algorithms doing planning in 5 hours instead of 5 weeks. So I think we're still doing projects with the software which was developed by Microsoft Office 40 years ago, and that's how we're managing projects. We've not embraced technology to do our work better in project management, and I'm hopeful that this will happen very soon. So that's why I shrink the current scope into about 20% of our activities. It's a bit radical, I know you might disagree, but just to make the point, I do think that we will need to run some of the projects that we do. I never understand why when a project manager is the person that knows most about what we're doing, if it's a software or an app or a new business unit, why the project manager has to drop it and run away and leave it to somebody else when the project manager is the one that knows most about it, right? So it makes sense in the public sector or in consulting where you're supporting, but if you're the owner in your company, why don't let the people run with that piece? I don't understand why it doesn't happen more often. You start seeing the thing, so just finish the project, but then you also bring the benefits. And then the big focus, I think it's on benefits, is what we were talking earlier. I agree with Richard that you cannot fast track benefits if in 5 years, but we can put benefits in the front and try to at least get part of it, the 5-10%, and then 20%. And I hope that today project plans have deliverables and milestones and artifacts. What if we would just have plans on benefits, right? Forget about what we do today and say, well, this is my benefit plan. This is what stakeholders need to do. This is the executive. This is precisely when we're going to get that benefit, 10%, 20%. The deliverables is our internal kitchen that we don't share openly. But imagine, can we try that? Can we just do benefit plans and take that as our roadmaps? I think that's where things are going, and it's a big jump because we're not used, and it's hard to estimate benefits and commit to them. But I think that's where the future lies of this profession, when and fast. So this is a big view that I share in the book. And again, Richard, if you want to comment, maybe there's other people who want to comment on this. Do you agree? I think it's very radical. I'm saying just 20% of what we do today will stay.
I mean, Mark, do we have any other questions?
So this one's from Ricardo. Antonio's forecast, what PMs are evolving to, more and more people focused, social relationship, etc., is getting closer and closer to what a change manager is. Any comments on that?
I think there's a merge between change management. Obviously, it's super important with project management, product management. So yes, absolutely. I just think we have, again, part of that wrong discussion that we had for many years is project management versus change management, and then the product manager versus change manager. I think that was wrong. And back to that focus on being specialized on one thing. Now we're talking about being specialized on many things, and I would definitely put change management as part of that. If you want to call them change managers or strategy implementations or project managers, I don't really mind the term. It's just the skills that we need to build. So Ricardo, absolutely great question. I think we need to embrace all these techniques and tools and competencies.
So the next question is from Oliver Colo. I hope I've pronounced that okay. What I see emerging is project managers serving more as coaches to leaders and teams adopting new ways of working. The PMO role will be more of governance and capacity development for distributed teams.
Yeah, Oliver, thanks for the question. And I think so. I think one of the challenges that I realized, again, one of these big disruption in this world where blue was predominant, the day-to-day and running the business and predictability, I remember there was this concept of resource management, right? I don't know if you are familiar with that. And businesses were in charge and leaders to plan their resources and say, well, they're going to work in this for the next year. And when you start having more and more projects, resource management becomes a mess because people are doing both. They're doing work in the operations, but they're having other type of jobs. So I've been trying to implement resource management in a few companies, and it was a nightmare because either people fill in timesheets and then you know precisely, but they would spend so much time filling timesheets that they will not spend it doing their job. So I think resource management as a concept, it is disrupted. And your point, Oliver, is should the project management office think about that? And I think so. I think maybe in a different way. It's not so much about where people are working, but how much capacity do we have free for launching new projects? And we're thinking about this new idea, and where do we get the resources? What do we need to stop? So it's more a sort of portfolio management than individual resource management. Resource management comes clearly from the operational world, doesn't fit. The same for the chief operating officer. Great when the blue part was so big. You don't need them anymore, right? So there's a lot of disruption happening, and I just wanted to raise that on resource management because it's a great topic that I failed so many times to try to put in place because of that connection between the two worlds. Thank you, Oliver. Great question. Let me go to the last concept that I want to share, which is the so this was basically the different tool sets that we need to build. I kind of follow up Clayton Christensen's, which is the guru of innovation. He already splits innovation to 3 types of innovations in businesses. One is efficiency, innovation, sustaining innovation, and then transformative, the big one. So I said, if Clayton, which is the guru on innovation, says these are the 3 types of innovation, I thought, well, it makes sense to have 3 types of projects following the guru of innovation. So I'm saying, yes, you should have this. And for each of them, you need a mix of tools. And most of these efficiency projects, you don't need project management. If you use project management, it's just too big. And if you use Agile for continuous improvement, it's a mess. If you use project management for high uncertainty, it's a failure for sure. So this is an interesting concept that I talk about, but the one I want to finish with is the project canvas. And many of you, maybe you've seen me, I posted a few times. I use this, I've been using this for 2 years. The little canvas that you see on the left, it was the first, my first child canvas, kind of. It had 14 modules or building blocks. But what I work with HBR is, can we simplify even more? And it was a big challenge. Project managers, we love details. We want to. So I also had the pleasure to get feedback from Alex Osterwald and Yves Pignon from the Business Model Canvas. So I'm proposing a bit of a higher level project canvas, which can be applied to mostly any type of projects. And so I'm very happy to share that with you today. This is an essential part of the tool that I want to people to use, embrace, and to do their projects better. Yeah, I would be glad to hear when you start using it and give me feedback. I know some of you have been using the one on the left. I think the one on the new one is much more to engage with stakeholders, with senior leaders. So removing a few of the elements which are a bit too detailed in our world of projects, making them more organizational or business. So this is a big part, and I spent I received already quite some good feedback for for this. I know I got feedback from Richard as well. So that's the last part of the book that I wanted to share. So I propose that we will open up now for questions or jumping in or disagreeing or having different views.
Okay, Antonio, I'll come to June's question next, and then hopefully we'll have a next question on video. So June's is, there's been a lot of talk about moving from projects to products, teams that manage the end-to-end process and are responsible for run. How does this fit with your view of projects?
I think it's a great question, June, and I don't have all the answers. I understand that when you move to Agile, you embrace products and forget about projects. There is a very, I've seen that in banks that I work on, where they remove all the project, even the project words around and the project managers, they move into product. And I think you still need projects in an Agile driven organization. Big digital transformation ecosystem. So I think I don't know how this is going to fit together, or which one will be the work or the word or the term. But what I've seen, for example, in this bank, they're opening up now into some other projects and project roles. So again, it's part of that mix, that tool set, where a project manager needs to understand products. Why shouldn't be? And the product manager should understand projects. So there's a convergence. And when I talk to project managers, I say, well, you're a few steps ahead because we're in the project economy, but there's all these product managers and there's these managers and there's the change people who might take over, because if they learn and build those skills, there will be the perfect resources that we need today. So great question, June. I think we'll see the evolution in the next years, but I see convergence.
Great, thanks, Antonio. We'll come to Parashar next. Parashar, you should be able to open your mic and webcam, and if you'd like to.
Great. Hi, Parashar.
I'm from Bangalore. Yeah, congratulations first, Mr. Antonio. I ordered your book, and it is coming by 14th or 15th of this month. Next month. Thank you. And my question is, how you define the ROI for a bigger project like I'm doing, 3 to 5 years project, as you mentioned. So return of investment, for some reason I find for that reason we stop the project many times. So how it, in your experience, played a bigger role? And it is. Yeah, sorry.
No, Parash, I think it's super important, the business case and return investment. I think it's something that still needs to be done. I'm not sure we have embraced the pitfalls on over optimistic. I think leaders should be, it's hard, it's a great point, because we should be able to be updating the business case. We know that the scope and the requirements and the world will be different in 6 months. So I would say, for me, the perfect world would be a world where you launch the project, you have your initial business case, but knowing that the estimates will change, that the competition will be different in 6 months. So a refresh of that project every 6 months, I think that would make sense, and including timelines, including cost, including return on investment, and that you would give the option to the senior leaders to stop, to accelerate. So those checkpoints, gates, should really happen in place. I know theoretically we talk about them and it's more around time and cost, but why not about the business case and fine tune that business case and give. I think our role for a project manager is always bring the truth, always bring the truth. Even if it's painful, bring it to the table, and then let the leaders together with you decide what's best. And return on investment is a key point. So we know we're slipping. If we know that we are not going to meet it, bring it to the table.
Thank you. Thank you.
Richard, anything on that?
I suppose we try and have a single number for return on investment. I think there should be a range. And I think one of the challenges is to build into the return on investment. So, you know, if things go really well, this is what it might look like. But we do face some risks and challenges, some ambiguity, and we need to factor those in. But, you know, people always like a project budget, don't they? They like to narrow it down very, very early on. And I just think it's too soon. So you have to live with that uncertainty for a lot longer. But that's a very challenging thing for either a government, a public body, or indeed a board of directors to live with lots of variables. But I can remember reading somewhere, you know, when the oil price moves up, then all the investment goes into production capability. But if someone says, but hang on a moment, what happens if in a few years' time the oil price collapses? Very few people want to hear that bad news. But when the oil price does collapse, then the investment is just sitting there not usable. And it's how do you build in scenario planning with the return investment for a project?
Thank you. Great, thank you. Any other questions or somebody?
Yep, we'll see if we can go to the Netherlands for the next questioner. So, yep, you should be able to share your webcam and open your audio.
Yes, you can see me now.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
Hi, Antonio. surprise.
You can hear and see.
Yeah, a bit late, but I'm still here. Half in the dark, but it's winter. A question, you talk about return on investment and benefits, etc. First of all, I think it should be the project executive or project sponsor to pitch the project, to sell the project. It is not the project manager, but do you agree that it should be the sponsor? And the second question is, you talk only about projects focus on return on investment and benefits, but shouldn't we focus more broadly on project success and what is project success? It's not only benefits and benefits management and making profit, because the supplier can lose a lot of money on his project. The customer makes a lot of profit with his product, but it's not a successful project for everybody. So shall we do some addendums? Or?
Well, yeah, I think that's part of that focus on benefits and yeah, I was telling you why won't we should have benefit plans. Yeah, that's it, full stop, right? And that's what all your stakeholders care. So I think it's a big jump. It's difficult. We've been talking about benefit management for 20 years. I've not seen them in place really well, and I think now is the time to learn how to do that and take that step. But yes, Jaap, thank you. I totally agree.
Okay, we'll talk later. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jaap. And next question, I'm going to head to Cesar. So Cesar, you should be able to unmute.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Unfortunately, I can't open my camera. I am in mobile. Antonio, thank you for all your contributions in the profession. I have two questions. The first one is related to PMO and how is your ambition in the combination of different kind of projects, agile work, predictable work, hybrid work, how the PMOs, based on your experience or what you are envisioning in the future, should combine all those words? This is my first question. And the second one is related to risk management. In this new world with a lot of uncertainty, how the risk management is important for the organization from the original risk management perspective, now is evolving to what?
Good question, Carlos. Thank you for the pointing. Let me answer first the second. I think risk management, we saw it as something like an add-on. It's an important part. What I try to say in the canvas is that risk management is embedded in all the elements. It's part of the purpose. It's a part of the investment, in the benefits, the scope, the people. So I think it's an integral part. I just want to keep it like as part of all the big elements of a project, not just a special stream where you do risk analysis and so on. So I think more than ever, with the speed of change and uncertainty, like Thomas was talking before, risk management becomes not just a risk for the project, but more as an opportunity. I think we need to switch to see risk as opportunities and not just as something negative, but it's more opportunities that we can incorporate in our projects to deliver them better and more successfully and with more creating more impact. Richard, do you want to comment?
I've often wondered whether risk management is the wrong approach, because it always seems to be negative. And I can remember someone telling me about an approach, I don't know if it's a common approach, and that is to move to assumption management. And if you ask the senior people involved in the project, what assumptions have you made regarding this project? You have a much more positive conversation, and you have a much richer conversation about the assumptions they made. Now, because those of us in the project management world translate those assumptions into risks. So, you know, I'm working outdoors, I've assumed it's not going to rain this winter. Well, that's quite a difficult assumption to make. That will give quite a risky project if it's an outdoor project. And I think it's just changing the words maybe around projects to a more positive, engaging, collaborative conversation, rather than necessarily a negative conversation about what risks do we face. Because no one openly says that they are aware of all the risks and, you know, why are you troubling me with these things? But they're much more open about assumptions. So I think maybe part of your new toolkit, Antonio, is to have positive words to have the conversation about really understand what the project is, what the benefits are likely to be, yeah, and how can we then manage them.
We've got Ricardo waiting, Antonio. Do you want to say your own question then, Ricardo?
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon,
everybody. So, Antonio, I've been following your strategy implementation material, and it's clear that sometimes the strategy might be fantastic. The business case may look good, clearly on the green, positive, but then implementation fails, execution fails. So in projects like infrastructure projects where I work at currently, railways, for instance, projects are typically very long. And I'm wondering if the existing frameworks, project delivery or management frameworks are adapted to the latest, let's say, requirements. You're now on your canvas number 2. Do we need to evolve to frameworks number 2? Where do you start when you get involved with a long and large scale projects? Do you start by reviewing the existing framework? Is that it?
Completely. Yes, you are right, Ricardo. You're spot on, and I think it's a complementary strategy. Implementation is another way of looking at what I'm covering in the book. Is where I think we need to evolve. So it's complementary. I think. Of course, the book brings more details, and it's a first step. It's a foundation, but also for project managers who want to get better, to understand more the business aspects of projects and the new modern project management. And then the strategy implementation is a step change in your career to open up, understand strategy and implementation from a broader perspective. So it's very much complementary, Ricardo.
Okay, thank you so much.
Can we fit one more question in, guys? We've got Christian, who should be able to join us now.
Hi, Antonio.
We have lots of gurus today in this call, huh? It's the call of the
everything
gurus.
depends what you are calling gurus, you know, or magicians with long hair on this kind of. Hi, Antonio. A great book as usual, you know. Congratulations for having the latest book. My question would be, you know, we have been working together on that point. On one side, we have a project portfolio management environment, which I would be quoting, whichever way this is organized inside the company. And on the other side, we are talking board of directors of a company. And somewhere in the middle between a project portfolio management environment and the board of directors, we have the CEO and all these kind of people who might not always understand what we are doing on the project management environment and on the portfolio environment. What is your current views after you now have been studying more those elements and writing this book on how I would not say an optimal interaction with a board of directors, really the board of directors would be acting, but what would be already points of improvement that you have been finding and that you would like to highlight?
Well, Chris, you're doing an amazing job with the boards. If there's somebody who knows about the need for understanding of projects and portfolio management for boards, is what you've been doing in Belgium, in Guberna, and other association, Chris. So thank you for being here and the question. I absolutely think that this is a core competency for boards too. The future of organizations are their projects, and boards have been very much focused on risk, on compliance, on controls. But with that, we've seen that you don't build the future. So I have been talking, I've been writing a few articles for boards saying, well, people on the top of the organization, you need to start understanding how your organization build these competencies, how your organization becomes more agile, how you build competencies to implement projects, and how the company, the senior leaders, chooses the big bets, the projects that will keep your company alive. So I think there's a big space that we just scratched the surface, and Chris, you're doing a lot on that, but I believe that's the next thing that we need to work on is boards. You need to also start working in this new world driven by change. So thank you, Chris. Always good to see you.
Thank you. Great work done. Thank you, Antonio.
Okay. Well, I think we'll start to wrap up now. So I'll pass back to you, Antonio. Just any closing thoughts before we wrap up?
Well, for my side, thank you, Richard. Thank you, Mark, Estelle. Thank you, APMG. Thank you, everybody in the call. I do hope that you get a copy of the book. I wish I could sign them and get your feedback. It's all virtual. I don't know how to sign books virtually, but I'm happy to get your feedback too as well. I think it's important that together we build the future, and I believe we are on the spotlight. Interesting, the HBR magazine, which is the most influential media in the world of management and leadership, in November and December. So right now has put project management in the spotlight, better project management, with the editorial of Adi. So I think just another big cherry on the cake, saying now we need to step up and we need to really deliver value. Not just financial, but creating a better world, social impact, sustainability. These are all projects that we need to deliver, successfully. So thank you.
Yeah, we'll second that. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining. Thank you for the questions as well. It's great to have a lot of interaction, and great to see your questions to Antonio. And thank you very much, Antonio, for coming along for this session. Best of luck with the book. And we'll follow this session up with a quick email afterwards, just so we can outline any links. And if you need a link to get the book, for example, we'll send that to you tomorrow. So thanks everyone again for joining. Thank you, Antonio. Thank you, Richard. And we hope to see you on APMG events again soon.
Thanks very much. Thanks, Antonio. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Take care.
Antonio. Bye.